In this occasion, we will have a presentation titled, as you can see from the slide, Cosmic Inheritances, Ecophobia, and Elemental Ecocriticism from Assistant Professor Dr. Gizem Yılmaz Karahan. For the ones who don't know her much, allow me introduce her. She is currently assistant professor in the Department of English Language and Literature Department at Social Sciences University of Ankara. She completed her PhD at Hacettepe University, and the title of her dissertation is The Discord Between the Elements and the Human Nature, Ecophobia and Renaissance English Drama. And as far as I know, she is the first in Turkey who used the theory of ecophobia or ecophobic discourse in her PhD dissertation. And her research interests are British drama, early modern English drama, critical theory, elemental ecocriticism, ancient philosophy, new materialisms, ecophobia, and performance studies. She has several articles and book chapters published on international platforms. Moreover, she has translations and conference papers and proceedings, radio podcasts, and YouTube talks. And Gizem Hocam, we are looking forward to listening to your presentation, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much for this nice introduction as well. Well, actually, it was the first PhD dissertation in the world that used ecophobia as a term, so it was an honor for me as well. I want to introduce a little bit what ecophobia is, elemental ecocriticism is, and what actually this field is looking for academically. So I want to start with material ecocriticism. I'm sure you're all familiar with this term from Özge Hoca's lecture as well. I will just touch upon these terms a little bit. And if you have any questions or comments, please do not hesitate to interrupt. I would love to discuss these terms or, comments with you during my presentation. So it's okay for me. Well, I wanted to start with the material ecocriticism, and then I will go to ecophobia and elemental ecocriticism because I think they are all interconnected. Material ecocriticism and storied matter as the term of material ecocriticism was developed by Serpil Opperman and Serenello Iovino. They together theorized material ecocriticism and storied matter. So what does it mean actually? Material ecocriticism reveals how every being is keen on telling its story. So matter is full with story and narration according to material ecocriticism. I will give some examples to make it more clear actually. And every being, not only human beings, because there was a folklorist, I think it was Hans Kirk, but I'm not sure about the name. He said, we are not only Homo sapiens, we are also Homo narrans, who love narrating stories actually. Material ecocriticism extends these limits, and it actually says it is not only human beings that love telling stories, but also every being and every matter, even non-human beings and matter, tell stories, just like stones, for example. Stones tell many stories, which I will give as an example indeed. So every being is keen on telling its cosmic inheritance, actually, that you can see in my title. So every being has a cosmic inheritance, which means the agency of every being is shaped by other beings. And those other beings are not only human beings, but also non-human beings like stones, rivers, water, but also extraterrestrial beings like, the rotating planets or the cosmic location of the sun. They are also influencing our agency and our behaviors indeed. So geographical factors, political factors, and material bodily factors, our age, our political situation, our mood, or our being a mother or not, they're all affecting our behaviors and our agency. So when we look at all these factors separately, they are all telling a unique story actually, forming a kind of narration compost which is actually a human being from our perspective. So every being is keen on telling its cosmic inheritance by different stories. So the storytelling feature, let me say, is freed and liberated from the hands of human beings here. And storied matter aims at showing how matter, as you can see from the slide, how matter is endowed with meanings and is thick with stories. This is a quote from Serpil Opperman. So by doing so, material ecocriticism reconfigures our fragile and volatile dynamic relationships, both within ourselves and with non-human bodies. Here, within ourselves is the most important thing, in my opinion, because when we say relationship, we always think about relationship between something. But we also have a relationship within our body, which means we are not a unique, untouched, pure human being. Our human body is also telling a story with many microbes, bacteria. When we look at our body, which I will talk about later, how much of us is human being can be discussed actually. So I will refer to Donna Haraway, who says we have never been human, and which actually shatters what the meaning of human and culture means actually. So this is very important in my opinion. Human lifespan, for example, or perception, human perception is not enough to configure how trees, for instance, are telling their own stories. It is very easy to see tree as an example rather than a microbe. That's why I give this example. And we have a reference to the English novelist John Fowles, who wrote The Tree, in which he talks about how trees communicate with each other and within their own bodies as well. That's why I wanted to use this example. Our lifespan or perception is not enough to configure how the trees are communicating, are telling their own unique stories. They reveal, for example, their ancestors. They reveal how they transmit their entangled codes, which is a kind of DNA indeed, just like in our bodies. So their entangled codes are transmitted to the next generation of life, but it's not that easy for us to observe that unique way of life actually. We can actually eyewitness their births or deaths, or we can see how old it is by looking at the layers in the trunk, but this is not what I mean actually. When we look at the body of the tree, we can see many insects inside, many worms, vermin, and how it communicates with earth actually, and how the roots are interconnected, and how the roots are communicating with each other. I always remember rhizome here with Deleuze and Guattari. You see how it doesn't have a beginning or an end. It doesn't have a middle point, a center. It just happens. It's just a becoming. It is not a fixed being. It always becomes. So the tree is a very good example, in my opinion. And John Fowles, the English novelist John Fowles, underlines their intrinsic value, the intrinsic value of the trees, not instrumental, because when we look at the instrumental values of beings, it means that we are anthropocentric. Every being is intrinsically valuable. So John Fowles also underlines their intrinsic value and their intrinsic narrations, stating that they were co-tenants. They were already more than trees with lots of co-tenants. I love this phrase. He says the trees have many co-tenants like birds, nests, or insects, whatever you say, or when we look at from the subatomic perspective, it has many other atomic particles that I cannot name actually, because a physicist or I don't know what field it is should have a look at that kind of narration maybe. But we have many tree families, we have many different beings. So even thinking about how it is with a root but rootless at the same time can help us understand how it tells a cosmic narration actually. So I think it's a very good example. And when I think about John Fowles the tree, I always remember Donna Haraway, who says how our bodies are multi-species crowds. So we are not just alone, even if we are alone actually in a room, because we have many beings inside. So we are actually a crowd, multi-species crowd. So don't feel lonely anytime. We have many beings, many spirits in terms of spiritual uniqueness. We also have many spirits or beings inside. So Donna Haraway actually is very good at underlining how we are a multi-species crowd, just like the trees indeed. So another example to look at the non-human narration maybe, or story better, is stone. I think this is also a very good example. When we talk about stone, it should be very appropriate to mention the name Jeffrey Cohen, who wrote the book Stone and Ecology of the Inhuman. And I love that book, actually. I recommend you to read it. In his book, he similarly draws attention to the elemental stories told by stones. Like, for example, emphasizing their dynamic positions as, I love this phrase, they are ancient allies in knowledge making. So actually I love and I find this definition very intellectual actually. Stones are our ancient allies in producing knowledge. We look at stones to understand our past actually, or the past of any other being, I don't know. So stone is telling a very good narration, a unique narration. And in that narration, we cannot see any human being, or very little traces of human beings, maybe. Of course, it is us who comment upon that narration because it is our perspective. That's why we comment. It is our way, it is our life. We are human beings and we cannot go beyond being a human being. That's why. So by saying that they are ancient allies, I think Cohen invites us to rethink matter in terms of respecting their narrative potentials carried through histories and spaces. And this time perception is not for human beings, because in our time perception, when we compare it with the stone, ours is just too limited to produce that knowledge. That's why it has a kind of cosmic narration, and it's really important. So Cohen actually underlines interactive. This definition is also very important, interaction, which I will refer to, don't worry. Karen Barat is the one who defines interaction in terms of post-humanist philosophies. So Cohen emphasizes interactive performativities. I'm sure you're all familiar with performativity, which means it doesn't have an end. We perform, and I always remember quantum physics when I talk about performativities. And you know, Karen Barat, one of the most significant post-humanists, also is a quantum physicist and feminist at the same time. And she gives examples from Heisenberg and Niels Bohr and their quantum physics. I have difficulty in understanding, but I just read and try to configure what they say. Niels Bohr actually says that it is not possible. Well, you can make a deeper research. I will just summarize it. It is not possible to determine the location or the boundary of a being by just observing. So you cannot just stay as an observer and say, oh, this is something, and this has this limit, and this is stone. It is not possible, according to Niels Bohr's quantum philosophy, let me say, because it has a boundary at the very moment that you observe. Unless you don't, it loses its boundary. Well, that boundary is specific to your observation time, and it is not fixed. You know, you just cheat yourself by saying, deceive yourself by saying, oh, this is something and this has a boundary. And quantum physics is very important when we look at it from a post-humanist perspective, from this way actually. So very intelligent. So Cohen actually underlines how stones are telling interactive performativities and calls the way stones act upon surrounding bodies, being able to act upon bodies. When I say bodies, it's not only human bodies. So being able to act upon surrounding bodies is having an agency, actually. And you know, all these eco-criticisms, post-humanisms, they all question that agency is not unique to human beings. Not only human beings, but also all beings or matter, whatever you say, act upon something. Like, for example, stones. They look very static, but actually they are not. Only their time perception is different from human beings. That's why they look static to our eyes and our perception, actually. So it is very important to comprehend it. And stones act upon surrounding bodies, energies. It actually changes energies, just like human beings, or times or locations, and it creates a kind of lithic friendship, as Cohen refers, as you can see in the slide. And this is also a very good definition, in my opinion. Stones are our lithic friends. Thanks to them, we understand our past, or the past of our planet, actually. As an example, you can see this fossil. Stones, we can use stones for many things. Like, we have stones to cure, to heal. We believe in the power of the stones. Like, for example, I don't know what kehribar is in English, but I put kehribar necklace around the neck of my baby because she has some difficulty in teeth process. So we believe in the power of the stones, right? Or when we look at the stones, when we look at this fossil, it actually tells something. It tells how the process of petrification or decaying of the body happens. And all these bodies are porous bodies. Porous means it doesn't have a boundary, it's not fixed, and it just, you know, happens with everything, just like our body. Think about that. I know it's a little bit pessimistic, but when we die, when we go into the earth, actually deep earth, we are eaten with worms, vermin, and we lose everything. Well, actually, we had already those worms or vermin in our bodies when we were alive. So it is not something new. You know, when we look at our bodies, it's full of parasites, microbes, worms. So we just change our state of being when we die in the earth, actually. So it is different. And stones are telling something. That is my point, actually. So in questioning the process that takes for a body to be no longer a body or life or can in Turkish, but material that can be moved, that can be used to build a place. For example, just like the house we are dwelling in, the stones in our houses were lively beings once. So when we look at our houses this way, it's a little bit strange, but you know, the world is going on and everything is transforming, and we're just living our way of life, actually. So Haraway's interspecies performativity and multispecies crowd is actually very apt to mention here. Donna Haraway is, I think, finger pointing to this non-human narration. Donna Haraway always says how non-human beings tell a narration and how we form a kind of unique narration with them as well. So I think it's important. So Donna Haraway says, for instance, but in terms of non-human animals, but we can just apply it for every kind of beings or matter. Whom or what do I touch when I touch my dog? I think this question is very important. Whom or what do I touch when I touch my dog? Well, are we that separate, or are we sharing something, you know, spiritually and materially as well? So this question is very crucial to answer. Well, it doesn't have an answer, in my opinion. And she also says, how is becoming with a practice of becoming worldly? So becoming with something, well, actually it is becoming worldly. You cannot become with something. you are already entangled with that something, actually, if you understand. Even with breathing, because when you breathe, you share your subatomic particles with other beings. Even breathing, even staying in the same room happens, actually. When you look at our Anatolian, or let's say Eastern culture, we have, well, I have a reference to Avicenna, which is Ibn Sina, actually, who mentions the power of the stones and how stones are telling their own narration. Avicenna, in the Book of Minerals, says that, well, I don't have that quote, but I'm reading it. Animals, just as they are sometimes changed into stones, and especially salty stones. I don't know why salty, but animals are changed into salty stones, according to Avicenna. For he says, of course, he has many, research. For he says that just as earth and water are material for stones, so animals too are material for stones. And places where a petrifying force is exhaling, they change into their elements and are attacked by the properties of the qualities, which are hot, cold, dry, and moist, which is referred to by Aristotle as well, because Avicenna studied Aristotle very well, actually. So these qualities, which are present in those places, and the elements in the bodies of such animals are changed into the dominant element, which is earth mixed with water in terms of stone, actually. And the mineralizing power converts into stone, and the parts of the body retain their shape inside and outside, just as they were before. So he actually tells how a stone becomes a stone. But I think what is the missing is not only animal bodies, but also human bodies or other bodies change into a stone. Maybe in terms of religious, I don't know, questions or religion or other geographical forces, he just didn't mention human bodies, but also our bodies change into stone. We become fossils. There was a biologist, Steve Jones, who says in the language of the genes, he says that our DNA is even a fossil. When we look at our DNA, we see how, life started and how life, made us. For example, how life made Big Gizem. When you look at my DNA, you can see my ancestors, even some kind of fish ancestors as well. We're coming from the sea, that's why. So our DNA is our fossil, and I love this definition. So stone here becomes the embodiment of porosity. Porosity is very apt here, I guess. Becoming porous, becoming, I don't know, geçirgen in Turkish. It doesn't have a boundary, okay? Becoming porous, or enmeshment, we can say, entanglement. So stones are important. Now, I want to mention, we said interaction or transcorporeality is the same here. Well, I think many of the people mention the same thing, but with different terms. That's why I just gave these two terms together. Transcorporeality and interaction are very similar, so it's easy to understand them together. Well, transcorporeality is the term developed by Stacey Alaimo. Stacey Alaimo started her career as an ecofeminist. But then ecofeminism was blamed for being essentialist, so they changed its name and said we are posthumanist we are feminist posthumanist eco-critics. It's the same, just changing the name. So what is transcorporeality? It underlines the relationships between bodies and within bodies as well. Possibilities illustrate not only how various substances travel across and within the human body, so various substances travel across and within the human body, but how they do things, often in unwelcomed ways, by the way, often in dangerous ways, in toxic ways. It is also okay, because it is also the reality of the life that we created. So often unwelcome or unexpected things and substances, and are at times contending with dangerous, often imperceptible material agencies. If you are into this, transcorporeality, you can read Bodily Natures by Stacey Alamo, which is a book that was published in 2010, a good book actually. So similarly, interaction developed by Karen Barat also refers to this kind of traveling. I favor interaction more and Karen Barat's inquiries more. That's why I prefer Karen Barat. Interaction is different from interaction because intra here underlines how this, interaction happens between and within ourselves. That's why intra-action, okay? This is very important. So Karen Barat questions what agency is, what being alive means actually. So he says agency is not something possessed by humans. We all know this thing by far now. So agency is not something possessed by humans or non-humans for that matter, but it is an enactment. Very important definition. It is not something to be possessed. It is an enactment. It just happens, It doesn't have a boundary. We shouldn't name it. We shouldn't try to catch what agency is. It just happens. Just like the cosmos, just like, the planet. It just happens and all the things are tied to each other. Even just a very slight change in the, our planet system would result in chaos and would result in death for many us, the eradication of human species even. So everything is tied to each other with a perfect chaos and with a perfect harmony. So it is just not something to be possessed. It is just an enactment. And it enlists, if you will, non-humans as well as humans. And Karen Barat also says we should just name not ontology or epistemology, we just look at onto-epistemology, which is a kind of attempt to, unite ontology and epistemology, which is being and knowing actually, which was separated from each other, I think, with Descartes most of all, who says cogito ergo sum, I think therefore I am. So thinking and existing were separated from each other. And they said, who is the thinking being? Human beings. So we exist. What about cats? They don't, so we can just kill them, because they don't exist. Or what about trees? We can just cut them because they don't exist. They don't feel. But of course, this is not true. And when we look at from the post-humanist perspective, it is not true at all. But what I like most is that, well, when I say this thing, I feel a little bit Anatolian, but when we look at our culture, we already have this kind of understanding. When I'm all talking about posthumanism, quantum physics, whatever you say, but they're all too Western in my opinion. Because when we look at our culture, we have Mevlana, we have Yunus Emre. Of course, we lost them today with, many other practices. But still, when we look at them, we have the understanding of Can. Every being has Can, okay, life. Not only life, actually. I don't know how to define it, but a kind of spirit. And that spirit is something to be respected. Not only human beings, but also, trees or, cats or stones. They are all creatures of God. And they all carry the light coming from God, just like Platonic perspective with ends, etc. So when we look at these two photos, I especially choose Buddhist monks because there was a joke told by Serpil Opperman, which I like most. And she told me that, all the academics from Western world trying to climb a tree very hard and they feel very exhausted. And finally, when they come to the top of the tree, a Buddhist monk turns and says, oh, welcome. We have been waiting for many ages. Where have you been? So they're just telling the same thing that, many years ago, maybe some, Eastern philosophies or Anatolian philosophies already told. So I think every, religion or practice, whatever you say, try to achieve the same thing with different practices. All right. So we said onto epistemology. Nature is not outside culture. This is also very important. So congregation of nature and culture here with interaction, Karen Barat, is very imported. Here I want to mention Donna Haraway again. Donna Haraway again, because influenced by the philosopher and socialist Bruno Latour, Bruno Latour is also an important socialist and philosophist. Bruno Latour wrote a book entitled We Have Never Been Modern. And influenced by Bruno Latour, Donna Haraway named one of the chapters of her famous book, When Species Meet, as We Have Never Been Human. So we have never been modern, we have never been human. And she accepts to be influenced by Bruno Latour, actually. So what does it mean, we have never been human? So what are we? How can we define ourselves? Well, if you have any comment, I would love to hear, by the way. So what do you understand by saying we have never been human? What does it mean? I don't force you, by the way, if you have anything to say.
I think it might mean that we never been human because we are named. I mean, if we weren't named, we wouldn't be humans. I don't know if the sentence happened correctly, but that's what I mean. Yeah.
Thank you, Rosarin. It's nice to see you, by the way.
Thank you, Hocam. You too.
You're very right. Something or someone named us as human, and we perceive ourselves as human. But what is human, actually? We are not human with capital H, definitely. We're just human beings, and we should not put boundaries of our beings. Okay, we have our way, we have our discourses, we have our society, we just create, but we should not take it as the privileged one, because it's just an enactment, just like agency, Karen Barat says. Of course, we have some realities. Of course, we are more intellectual, let me say, in quotation marks, than maybe a tree or a dog. Maybe not, we don't know, because we have never been a tree, and we cannot know the way the trees talk or think. But we should take our, discourses or culture or nature just as an enactment, and we should not separate culture and nature. That's why posthumanists say nature cultures, okay? It's not nature versus culture, but nature cultures, because every material formation influences every discursive formation as well. They are all together. It was, I think, Catherine Hales, one of the posthumanists, saying that what we make and what we think we are co-evolve together. Like, for example, we produce some kind of tools, then we started to walk on our 2 feet, etc. So our discourses, our even bodies are shaped with the tools that we produce, which are influenced by other beings or forces as well. So it is important to understand. All right, so I wanted to look at Sema here, but I'm running out of time, I guess, so I want to be faster. Sema is important because with Sema we go with the flow, and it's in our culture, Mevlana. And Mevlana says, you are the universe moving in ecstasy, I guess. I'm not sure about the call right now, but we are the universe. We carry the spirits of the universe inside, and those spirits are not only, that kind of religious spirits. Those spirits are the ones referred to by Galen as well, those 4 elements that enter our bodies. Those are the active spirits, and those 4 elements turn into 4 bodily liquids. I'm sure you're all familiar, Galenic humoral theory, or, Hippocrates. And those spirits are shaped by, digesting or breathing. So it is very important. So in our culture, especially in Mevlevi culture, we are the ocean. Actually, we know we are the ocean, but we also know that we are a drop in the ocean. And when we look at the Western philosophy, Western ideology, not philosophy, let's sell that drop back to our human beings. So they are just looking at the instrumental value of all beings. Today we are also looking at, because I think we are spoiled by some other forces. All the humanity, not only we. I am too Eastern. I look too Eastern when I talk about it. So what is human, we said? Our memory, weather conditions, centuries, politics between continents, countries, our age, gender, social status, spiritual or physical mood, they all show how non-human we actually are. Okay, so when we think about all these forces, we are actually very non-human, not human at all. All right, so Protagoras says we are the measure of the universe. Human beings are the measure of the universe. And, you know, I will just skip this, by the way. And when we look at this drawing by Leonardo da Vinci, Vitruvian Man, we are just perfect being surrounded by spiritual awareness and, you know, physical fitness. But this is not it, you know, and I think Renaissance philosophies were not aiming at putting human beings into the center of all, you know, other beings. They were just saying, okay, we are human beings and we can comprehend the universe by using our intellect, because our intellect is a reflection of that universe. I think this can be seen in Plato most. Plato says we are coming from ens, which is the, you know, ultimate goodness. I'm sure you're all familiar. Ultimate goodness, but we decay when we get closer to the body, and we can sense this ultimate goodness in the spirit of the world, which is animus mundi, actually. So, wow, okay. It has been half an hour already. All right, so I will just refer to ecophobia right now in relation to these things, actually. They are not separated. So we wanted to create a kind of unique human identity. We wanted to make ourselves privileged. We need culture to feel privileged, actually. We need our cultural, you know, perfection, because we are so afraid, in my opinion. And Simon Estock also agrees, and Simon Estock puts forward ecophobia as a term for it. We are so afraid of losing our privileged status as human beings. We are privileged, everything is created for us, you know, the world is there for us. Come on, the trees are there for us to cut them and make some shopping malls, right? So if we just lose this privileged position and we say, okay, we are also non-human, let's just look at it this way, it is just an enactment. If we say this, then we will have to face our part that we named as other, that we marginalized, because we always needed an other to make us privileged. And if we say, okay, we are that other as well, then everything collapses. That's why maybe we wanted to keep our culture working. So ecophobia, as put forward by Simon Estock, is, I will just summarize it, is just an irrational fear and hatred towards the physical environment, just like homophobia, for example, or racism. We fear nature and we hate nature and we want to, you know, dominate nature out of reason. It is irrational, you know. Why are we doing that? We are that nature that we fear, indeed. We want to dominate elemental bodies, like, for example, we want to make all the earth areas agricultural to serve our needs. But why? We are, you know, polluting that earth, that soil. We are putting some toxic materials into the soil because we want to have more, you know, products, maybe harvest out of reason. You know, it is very irrational. Because Simon Estock says we want to have predictable nature. We want to control nature to make it predictable. If we lose our control, then it means uncontrolled thing is unpredictable. It can have unpredictable results. That's why we want to have, you know, ultimate control, and we want to tame nature. This is the core of ecophobia, actually. And I just take ecophobia and apply it to our bodies, human bodies. Just like nature, our bodies are our natural parts. From, you know, especially Descartes' views, I think, therefore I am. Our existence is based upon our ability to think, so our intellectual capacity. What about our physical bodies? They are just, you know, okay, there, but they are the material ones that will decay in the soil after Earth, but we will be immortal with our intellectual, and we can comprehend everything with our intellectual capacity. So just like trying to dominate nature, we try to dominate, in my opinion, our bodies as well. That is my point of ecophobia. Because look at this, you know, shirt that is marketed. Don't compete, dominate your body. So we're trying to dominate and tame our bodies through sports, through medicine, maybe, I don't know, because we have many chemical medicines now. What about our, you know, herbal cure? Or through doping, I don't know, many things, you know, through tattoo even. We all want to have control on our bodies because we want to make it predictable. If we get sick, we will have apranax because it's very predictable and we can control our nature. Or we will have many muscles in our bodies, and we have many slogans or logos saying dominate your body, don't compete, don't, you know, go with the flow, just dominate with your body. So this is the extension of ecophobia, in my opinion, in our bodies as well. Okay, so we feel threatened by nature's individual intrinsic agency. So we want to have the ultimate control and the ultimate agency because we are the subjects of this universe. Come on, we are not just a tiny particles, but we are the subjects. All the universe is there for us. So we don't want to lose this ideology, actually. So ecophobia is a complex assemblage of attitudes and behaviors of fear, hatred, disgust, for instance. Well, here I want to mention Kristeva as well, object. It is a very important theory. Like, for example, we feel disgust towards some of our bodily processes. Like, for example, I don't know, going into toilet, even I cannot name it, you know, it's so disgusting. That's why, I don't know, some bodily liquids that we find very disgusting. So it is a very object experience. I recently had a kind of podcast with one of the universities in the States, and I mentioned how Corona was for me, and I said I was one of the lucky ones because I stayed all at home during my pregnancy, and now I breastfeed and I am at home as well, so it is healthier for me. And suddenly I just thought about how object it is as well. You know, it is a miracle. I gave birth, I have a baby and I love my baby, but it's also a very object experience. I cannot escape from my baby physically when she is inside, you know, and she listens to everything that I do. It is horrible. I want to give my good sides. I want to say, oh, I love you. Okay, it's true. And it's a miracle. And, you know, I definitely share my psychology and, you know, my intellect maybe with her. But I also share something that I find disgusting as well. So it is very different. Okay, I gave birth. Now she is out. She is healthy. But I breastfeed now. But while breastfeeding, I share my psychology, my, you know, good mood. I want to look into her eyes and I say, okay, I love you, even while I feed her. But, you know, I also share my microbes, bacteria, everything that I eat, even good or bad ones, go directly to her. So this is a very different ideology. And, you know, becoming aware of all these things may make you feel awkward sometimes. So I may be feeling that we are human beings with capital H is more correct for us to feel better. I don't know. All right. So this is ecophobia, actually. Well, I want to make a kind of correlation between ecophobia and elemental ecocriticism here. Ecophobia is the irrational fear and hatred, and we want to control nature out of reason because we want to make nature predictable. It is just similarly, we are just similarly doing it to elemental bodies as well, because I think nature, well, even when I say nature, I feel very different because I always say nature cultures. Let me say physical environment. The physical environment is composed of elemental bodies. We have many pre-Socratic philosophers like, you know, Thales, who is known to be the first philosopher, or Heraclitus, or Empedocles. I will not refer to each one of them, but, you know, they all say that the elemental bodies, like the four main elements, let me say. Of course, we have many different elements right now in the periodic table drawn by Mendeleev, but we are mentioning four main elements. They are the roots of the universe. They are the rhizomata, according to Empedocles, of the universe. So when we direct our hatred or our fear towards nature, we are actually transforming elemental bodies as well. But when we look at them, the elements are never easy, as Cohen and Duckert says in Elemental Ecocriticism. If you are into this theory, you should definitely read this book, by the way, Elemental Ecocriticism, because the elements will do you in. What does it mean? They have superior durability, more than you. You know, you're just a tiny being. Look at the untiring shining of the sun. You are not the center. So when we take the elements, as you know, bodies, okay, we want to control them, but they will do you in as well. They are more than yourself. And the elements will remind you of your, you know, tiny existence in the universe, in the planet as well. So here, how we direct our, you know, ecophobic psyche towards the elements with in the form of pollution. Like, for example, pollution took the form of an assault on the elements as places and environmental conditions. Mining technologies and the timber industry in particular adversely affected air, earth, and water. And the quest for mercury, lead, and arsenic, which contributed to bone, brain, and blood diseases. So the search for something in the physical environment contributed to some diseases as well. So we are doing this to ourselves. So often cause streams to be redirected. What does it mean? We are just, you know, having a kind of interruption to the way the physical environment goes on its own. So we redirect streams, you know, or we dry up the streams, or we contaminate them. So this is too much. We cannot do this, because we should just go with the flow, live with natural environments, but we don't do that. So the increasing removal of forests visibly scared the landscape. Herodotus, for example, took note of the fact that an entire mountain was upended in search of gold. Well, even in the times of Herodotus, this was as such. Sometimes I listen to Dolunay. I can hear her voice. That's why I just lose my concentration. Sorry for that, you know, if you catch a glimpse. So emerging metallurgy emitted smoke and poisonous gases into the stone, into the air, in addition to the wood and charcoal burned as fuel, and high noise levels were often reached in urban centers, etc., etc. So we are directing our hatred and our inherent fear towards the elements, and they you know, give us pollution back because we are doing it. If we try to control elemental bodies, like if we try to, you know, stream, if we try to redirect streams, then we pollute, we change something, and it has a kind of adverse effect. Actually, we should accept it. Right here, I want to mention a documentary, Midway by Chris Jordan. I strongly recommend you to watch it, or at least have a look at it on the internet. Here we can see how, you know, those birds are feeding on plastics, which can be found in the ocean. Even a kind of, you know, land, well, even a kind of space as big as Texas, if I'm not wrong, out of plastics happened in the ocean, and they are feeding on those plastics. And this is what we do if we try to control nature. So this is a kind of directing our fear and hatred towards the sea, towards water. Sea is the form of water as an elemental form. But now, okay, this was just like, you know, I think 10 years ago, if I'm not wrong, but now we have another layer, another pollution layer in the sea, which is COVID masks, of course, and we are still doing it, you know. This is bad, and we are just causing our ends by doing it, because nature will never die. It will find a way, but we are trying to exterminate our species, actually. Okay, so we always aim at the elements. They are the core constituents of our world and, you know, let's say our universe. Since the agency, I mean, acknowledgement of the agency of the elements as lively beings with potentials to act upon the human world would threaten the anthropocentric privilege, we just seem to ignore them and say that they do not exist, etc., etc. But even when we look at our bodies, well, it has an hour, so I will try to summarize from now on. When we look at our bodies, we can see how they are hosts for many non-human tales that are themselves elemental. Every mind, soul, eye, or book, a recording device. They are all a recording device to give habitation as story mutates, move along. So we're just temporary hosts, you know, and we are not just human being with a capital H, but we we inhabit many other beings and life forms in our bodies. We cannot know how many life forms there are in our bodies or in the world. In the universe, that time we cannot know, you know, how many life forms. So we just look at how, you know, we have flesh, substance, force, plot, weather, and how they actually form a kind of entangled story together. All right, so here, well, I still have many sites, by the way. I don't know how time passed this quickly, you know. I will summarize, by the way. So according to Western philosophy, when we look at the falling of human beings, Ken Hitler says that we had a kind of falling because we privileged flesh over the spirit. So even in the falling ideology, we see how flesh and spirit are separated from each other. And this was the main fault of human beings with the fall. Because Eve privileged flesh by, you know, eating something because it is a kind of bodily pleasure. So Eve privileged flesh over that spiritual belief or faith, whatever you say. So that is the main fault of human beings, according to them. But when we look at nature and when we look at the universe, we see how the universe is composed of the forces of love and strife, as Empedocles says, or Heraclitus's production of war and contest, or penalty and justice. They are just yin-yang philosophy, okay? How love and hatred, or, you know, strife, whatever you say, compose the world by just forming a kind of unification and harmony. So it's a kind of chaotic harmony. It is just like saying that we have two sides inside, bad and good side, just like, you know, God or Satan, whatever you say. So they are just harmoniously together. We just should find a way to keep the balance. But in that balance, we are not privileged beings. When we look at the universe, it is already in balance, in chaotic harmony. So we just try to understand it. Many philosophies, many religions are trying to do that, actually. I wanted to mention Deleuze and Guattari here, but I'm just skipping them to save time. Here, Deleuze and Guattari, why did I refer to them? Because they refer to Empedocles. That's why I wanted to mention. Even in modern philosophy, these pre-Socratic philosophers are effective. Deleuze and Guattari take Empedocles' rhizomata, because Empedocles says elements are rhizomata of the universe, which is roots of the universe, and they use this term, take this term and use it as rhizome. I'm sure you're familiar. They say becoming as a rhizome. So they use this term, and they say also love and hatred, just like Empedocles' love and strife. So I will just skip this part. And here I was planning to mention how how Plato just formulates his cosmogony by putting ends over all the, you know, beings, and how the spirit of the ends is shared among all beings with the animus mundi, or how Anaxagoras finds the ultimate, you know, like ants-like being with mind or no. But you can just make a quick research on them, or maybe you are familiar with them. And everything actually is spoiled by cogito understanding with Descartes, I think, therefore I am. So I'm just skipping this one as well. All right, this is the end, by the way. Trying to understand our existence as, you know, composed of many other beings, spirits, etc. I don't know if it's hard for you or not, But after I read Kerim Barat, especially after I read Kerim Barat, I was like, wow, I didn't know anything. I am eliminated, you know. So maybe reading can help, but it is not that, you know, it's easy to accept this fact. I'm aware. I have difficulty in accepting. I'm still, you know, trying to accept that I am not a human being with capital H, but we are elemental cocktails. You know, our bodies are composed of many, you know, elemental good and bad things at the same time, and goodness and badness are also something labeled by culture. So when we look at Earth, for instance, we're all coming from Earth. It is very, you know, traditional saying, but we're coming from Earth, we will go to Earth, and every being that is inside Earth is also inside our body when we look at it, like worms and vermins, parasites, I don't know, bacteria, or, you know, little creatures, whatever you say. And for Earth, you can look at Earth Bodies. It's a good book, by the way. I just wanted to write the names of the books to guide you into reading if you want. What about water? When we look at water, we are also coming from water. Our ancestors are fish, actually, in the sea. And this Your Inner Fish is a very interesting book. And Neil Shubin says, if you want to track the, you know, way of life, you should look at ancient fish fossils. Maybe you can understand how human beings evolved into being a human being then. Water is also important. What about fire? Fire is our first technology, stolen by Prometheus, and, you know, it made us human, and it made us a civilization, actually, with, you know, heating, cooking, I don't know, whatever you say, but fire helped us a lot. And air also, it is us, you know, it is the way that we communicate, and breathing is the most intimate thing that we do with other beings. You know, we breathe each other, and this is also important. Well, these are the good sides. When what we said, the elements are never easy, as Cohen and Ducker says, because they can also cause some, you know, catastrophes. Like, for example, when we look at the creation myths, or the how, you know, something happened like Noah, or, you know, some Atrahasis maybe in Sumerian epic history. Water can also cause some catastrophe, like floods, or fire, like volcano. They are natural catastrophes. Of course, catastrophe is a cultural term because it's not catastrophe, actually. Or air, you cannot live without breathing, for instance. You cannot hold your breath. If you lose air, that means that you are dead. Or earth, you cannot just breathe under the soil. So they are what composed us, yes, but the balance, and, you know, keeping the balance in our state is significant. For the last point, I want to advise a novel, Morgan Llewellyn, The Elementals. I think it's a very, you know, brilliant novel, and very easy to read, by the way. Here, she's an Anglo-Irish, if I'm not wrong, writer. She mentions how the elements, like, you know, earth, air, water, are very significant, and, you know, they can also cause some troubles. If you read it, I'm sure you will enjoy it. I think that's all that I want to mention. If there is any point that I left missing, because I can hear the crying voice of my baby sometimes, so I lost my concentration, but I would love to hear your comments, or whatever you want to.
Could I ask a very anthropocentric question?
Please, Özlem Hocam.
Thank you for this brilliant talk, actually. This was very eye-opening for me. But I have a problem with this agency of the human. I can understand the idea that, you know, it's great to see, you know, trees have stories, stones have stories, that every material has something to tell. But it's very unfortunate that it's only through our agency of language that we can read their stories.
Yeah.
So, you know, is there a solution to this paradox?
Thank you, Özlem Hocam, for this brilliant question, actually. I don't know if there is a solution, because I don't know any other way. I'm a human being, so it is the only way that we can do. Well, I was talking to a theorist, and I was just mentioning this thing, saying that if we were communicate with colors, then everything would seem as colorful things. But language is our way, and even not only spoken language, but also music and mathematical formulas, they are also language.
Yeah.
So we are trying to comprehend our world by doing this. But I wonder if they need this, stones. Maybe we are just trying to categorize again, name something, limiting something by this language. I don't know. This is a paradoxical situation, I'm aware, and I enjoy doing this, I enjoy trying to tell the narration told by the stones. And this is also very anthropocentric. But this
Yes.
is the way, I think.
Yes. Because, the stories about the stones or the trees is via human language.
Yeah.
And since we're literature people, language people, I think it is inevitable that we have our agency as big H.
Yes, because it is us that are telling them.
Yes.
I agree with you. And I'm aware it's paradoxical.
Thank you.
Thank you, Hocam.
Can I also make a comment?
Please.
I would like to thank you a lot because, again, this was also very eye-opening for me. Maybe we should a little bit talk about the saliva on the Marmara Sea nowadays. Actually, you said that we are underestimating the power of non-living elements. Actually, the sea was giving lots of signals and messages to us, but we ignored it. And actually, we were pumping our bodily wastes deep into the water. And now it is said that all of the organisms and the fish, they are going to die, and maybe there will be no turning back. Actually, I also made my notes about those valuable books. I'm going to read them. But sometimes, as we think that we are the greatest of the beings, we are ignoring the messages sent by the nature. I would like to thank you about it.
Thank you so much for mentioning that problem as well. Yeah, I'm aware, and it is a big problem, and it's happening all around the world. Those kinds of problems. Thank you so much.
Hello, teacher. I have a question. First
Please.
of all, I'm glad to see you today. And my question is that you say ecophobia is the fear of losing human dominance over nature, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how about I have the feeling that the fear of human powerless to act against the order than agency, other than human agency. Let me make an example. I say when we see flood, we have the fear of it.
Mm-hmm.
So is this something that also called ecophobia?
Thank you so much for this question. It was the point that I wanted to make clear, but I just lost it because I want to keep it quick. No, it's not, because it's rational. If, like, for example, if a tiger comes to me trying to eat me, of course I will feel threatened and afraid because this is the rational situation. But if I want to kill that tiger without any reason, if the tiger does not attack me, when I want to kill it because it's a tiger and it has the potential to do something, then it is real and irrational. Like, for example, we are all clearing the woodlands, all changing the habitations of non-human beings. This is ecophobia, okay? And control ecophobia, not trying to escape from a flood. Rational, of course, because my survival is important, okay? It is not something like, it was Jane Goodall, I guess. One of the crocodiles had a kind of attack towards her, and she said, no, please don't kill the crocodile. I wouldn't say that, because it is irrational saying don't kill the crocodile, because I can die at the end. I would say, please kill it because I want to live. But ecophobia is something else, trying to deliberately harm non-human beings or the natural environment for its instrumental value, okay, for the value that will bring towards the civilization, let's say. And out of which we have many difficulties, by the way. I think COVID-19 is also a result of it, because we always clear the woodlands, and, you know, out of which we have close contact with wild animals. And those kind of microbes or viruses, whatever you say, are inside those wild animals without harming them. But as we have, you know, close contact, because we, you know, clear all the habitations and, you know, trees, and we always overpopulate the world, then they come to our bodies, which are harmful for our bodies. So we have many difficulties. Thank you so much, by the way.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Gizem, so much. It was, you know, a great pleasure to listen to your conference. Thank you very much.
Hocam, I'm so happy to see you. Thank you so much.
Any other questions or comments?
Maybe I could ask about the plays you studied in your PhD, I guess, if I'm not mistaken. Which ones did you study in this?
Thank you for this one. Because I don't have any, you know, space to mention Renaissance drama, but I love drama, especially the Renaissance one. I studied Shakespearean plays because Shakespeare was studied a lot in terms of these eco-critical issues as well, and I wanted to make a kind of contribution to the field. I studied Marlowe, Tamburlaine, Dr. Faustus, Webster, the Duchess of Malfi. I studied Ho trilogy. It's not that famous, but Westward Ho, Eastward Ho, and Northward Ho. Very good trilogy, by the way. I studied Mayday, again, not that famous play, Mayday, a very good one. What else? Well, I had 3 plays for each chapter. I had 4 chapters, so I studied 12 plays, but I don't remember right now. You know, Marlowe, Dr. Faustus, Tamburlaine, the Duchess of Malfi, Ben Jonson, of course, Bartholomew Fair, my favorite one. What else? Fortune by Land and Sea, another good play. Well, that's all I remember, I guess.
Thank you very much. I'll read your thesis anyway.
You can find it on YÖKTES.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, then let me thank you once again, Gizem Hocam, for addressing this interesting topic. And on behalf of our department, we would like to present you a gift. I'm not sure whether you have received it or not through your email, but let me share the screen first to show you what your gift is. Yes.
Hi.
Yes.
I've adopted this cute koala. Let me go a little bit further down. Yes. Yes. Teşekkür ederim.
It's great. Thank you so much. Dolunay'a kardeş geldi. Çok teşekkür ederim. Ne kadar güzel bir hediye. İyi ki varsınız.
Biz de teşekkür ederiz.
Sen de öyle. Biz de teşekkür ederiz.
Görüşmek üzere. Hoşçakalın.
Görüşmek üzere.
Görüşmek üzere.
Çok teşekkürler.
Teşekkürler Gizem. İyi günler.